Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 7 of the SAICE Durban Breaking Barriers interview series, where we celebrate diversity and inclusion in the engineering industry. Today's guest is Cindy Quinaite, who manages the operations for the South African Council for the Project and Construction Management Profession, SACP-CMP. This includes 11 of the 13 Legislative Council mandates. Her portfolio covers 4 divisions: registration, education, profession governance, and customer relationship management. Ms. Quinaite has a master's degree in the arts and worked in higher education institutions for several years with a focus on research and postgraduate supervision. She has been a project manager in the FET sector on a skills training project for disadvantaged youths and women who could not afford tertiary education, lacked skills to support themselves, and faced joblessness. Her experience also extends to professional skills training, with a notable project being the training of circuit and district managers for the Limpopo Department of Basic Education. She is an ardent researcher with particular interest in educational support initiatives, and her most recent published research work was for the University of Pretoria, investigating the effectiveness of various interventions to assist first-year students succeed academically. Welcome, Ms. Quinaite. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Cassandra. That's a very important concept for us to have defined so that we make a valuable impact in the industry. And for the SACP-CMP, gender equity means being mutually inclusive, being impartial, fair, and committed to equal opportunities. So the importance of this for us was to ensure that we mainstream this concept. And that has meant that we've embedded diversity, equity, and inclusion into our competency frameworks for professionals as one of the competency standards. So what this will mean is it becomes an important aspect of creating transformative behavior at industry level and where it matters, and it will create a tangible change. So this links also to our vision of being a progressive regulatory body for the built environment management professions. Okay, so for the council, we're currently revising our transformation strategy. We had a 5-year strategy in which we were tracking progress made in terms of gender representativity. And we generally, the targets that we use generally track the ratio of female to male registered persons. And that's currently how our metrics focuses on shifting the needle on those numbers in terms of registered female professionals. However, we want to move towards measuring aspects of inclusivity, participation and empowerment of women in the industry. We think that will be a more valuable aspect to look into, because we want to see whether women are given the space to make a valuable contribution and be leaders in the industry. So we're looking also at utilizing amazing research that has been done by construction management academics on this very topic that will provide us the tools going forward for the development of these other measurements. I think one of the main aspects that we noted, and I can give you sort of some anecdotal examples, is challenges with mentorship, firstly, and then also challenges in terms of accessing work opportunities and more specifically being exposed to the industry. It's one of the major requirements for professional registration is that work experience, and many women struggle with that. When it comes to mentorship, what we've tried to do is we've tried to develop something that will create better accessibility to mentors. So we call it our mentor database, and we've linked it to something called our mentor matching service, which is like, and mind the expression, it's like Tinder, but for candidates, where we try and create a platform where it's easy, one point of access. You get matched with a mentor, you see whether they align to what you're trying to achieve, and then we track your progress throughout the program. So that's one of the things that we've integrated in terms of trying to assist. The other is entering into MOUs with companies to offer work integrated learning programs that can provide young women with an opportunity to be exposed in the industry and gain the much needed experience. I know one of the challenges that I've heard of with a few stories is that many times also, if we don't enter into these agreements and ensure the right standards are in place for that exposure to be meaningful, we find situations where our female students will be on a construction site or even just left in the office to make tea or to take minutes to meetings, and they don't get that valuable industry exposure. So if we enter into these agreements with these companies, then we can monitor the standards and the value that they add to these students. So the one that I think most of us are aware of is the way that our education system is structured at the moment. The groups, previously disadvantaged groups that we want to access and provide these opportunities to in the industry, are tending to be in educational environments that don't offer them the opportunity to get teaching in STEM subjects. And we need that in order to be able to, for those students to enter our programs. I think that is sort of one of the macro issues we're facing, I think, as all the built environment councils and all the professions that are in this field. But besides that, in terms of a micro level, I think what we note is the biggest barriers for diverse groups is lack of inclusivity in many environments. So especially management professionals, they often lack the ability to work effectively with people from different backgrounds, culture, gender, race, ethnic group, age. And this, once again, is where our competency framework, we believe, will play an important role. We want to look at developing this as a competency in professionals, that they have the ability to create an inclusive environment for these diverse groups, and they'll then ensure equal opportunities for entry for them. So what we've noted is we've done sort of outreach programs and CSI before in terms of having school programs where we try and attract the disadvantaged groups. We will continue to do that sort of endeavor going forward. But in terms of policies, what we found to be important is that we need to make educational institutions aware of our requirements in terms of ensuring that they attract the students that we want to see as professionals on the other side. So in our policy and criteria for accreditation of our educational programs, we've actually put demographic requirements in terms of the student intake. And that will look at the demographic makeup of students recruited into our programs, representativity, and as part of the requirement for universities to maintain their accreditation, they have to ensure that they keep those numbers at the target levels that we want to see. But I think the other thing is what we've noted with this requirement is that it improves accessibility, and the number of female students we have seen over the years has actually quite increased. And in one of the institutions, there are actually more female students in our educational programs than male students. So we see that has started to have an impact as well. So the sad story, Cassandra, about this is that we see these increasing numbers on the graduate side, but it doesn't translate into professional registration. And this is our next focus area. Where do we lose our female graduates? But on this point, in terms of diversity and inclusion in the sector, what we note is, and it's worrying to us, is the glacial pace of the change. So we see the numbers statistically moving forward, increasing, but in terms of, in comparison with their male counterparts, females are still considerably lower in terms of professional registration. And we noted also that women tend to leave the professions at a higher rate to their male counterparts. Excuse me. And I think One can say that's largely due to the hostile environments that they work in and the conditions that they have to work under. But I think that's what we're looking at as a council, to say, how do we retain, these professionals in the industry, and how do we get them to become professionals from the graduate phase of things. If we look at our numbers, the larger amount of females that we see are in candidate registration, and they're mostly Black females. So we want to see them shift out of there into professional registration, and so that's where we are starting to focus our interventions to see that then improving going forward. One thing I've noted of late is a lot of institutions, universities, have sort of done away with their bridging, what we used to call bridging courses, or your extended programs. And what that does is it allows those that didn't have the correct educational foundation, because we know they come from previously disadvantaged backgrounds, to catch up and then be part of the educational program. So that is a bit concerning to us, because this is the kind of thing that learning environments need to do to support the needs of a diverse student population, through ensuring that these educational programs have all the elements that encourage learning, that flag students at risk, and also initiatives to foster success. So, I mean, one of them would be like your extended program, where you have more intense, a support for those that would be then at risk. I think also, as part of your competency frameworks then trickle into curriculum frameworks, into your continuing professional development frameworks. So in our case, having put diversity, equity, and inclusion in our competency frameworks, these then will be required to be embedded in the curriculum for our educational programs, which will also lead to a heightened awareness of its importance, and also a more well-rounded graduate that exits the program. So I had to think about this one because I see women having a different perspective, and it's, for me, that is what diversity and inclusion is about. Diversity bringing in a different perspective. So in terms of project management in the construction sector, I think women have the affinity to cultivate a collaborative workplace climate that recognizes, celebrates, and rewards diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I think I also heard this in the XR CEO's interview, in that you want someone who understands the technicalities of what needs to be done, but also can bring all the aspects to make projects successful. And I think it's through this that innovation and innovative problem solving and project delivery can flourish. And I think that's the nuanced approach to project management, amongst others, of course, that women bring, which is quite valuable. So I think, and this is where one of our other initiatives come in, where we try and connect mentors to students very early on, before they actually even enter the industry. I think we cannot underestimate the importance of networks. And I think it's becoming increasingly important to develop networks. And I think to provide opportunities for women to do that, it's very important. I know with SAICE, we've also seen the Whitby program coming up quite nicely, which creates that, great accessibility to a powerful network of powerful women in the built environment that you can tap into, because you need to surround yourself with people that believe in your abilities, that are invested in your development and your growth, and can help guide you through the challenges you'll face in the industry. I think what's also important is that we need to learn to listen openly and absorb as much as we can, always be willing to learn. I think especially in the more technical fields, people tend to graduate and feel and believe they know everything, and you want to bulldoze, everybody in terms of the way you run your projects. But listening and always seeing an opportunity to learn can also help you in terms of problem solving and overcoming challenges. And the biggest thing for women especially, don't be afraid to ask for help. It's not a sign of weakness. I think it's a powerful thing to realize that I can't do this alone. Get the help that you need. And do not be afraid of complex subjects or problems where you've heard, you would never understand this. Don't be afraid. Go in there and give it your best shot. And the one thing that most of us fear, whether you're a man or a woman, is failure. And what I want to say is don't fear it. Because oftentimes failures are a step away from success. And if you can rise up from that failure, you'll see your next step will be where you want to be.
Thank you so much for all your advice today and for speaking to us about everything that the organization is doing in terms of driving diversity, equity, and inclusion in the project management profession. So we really appreciate you taking the time to speak to us today.
Thank you so much. It was a wonderful opportunity and also quite thought-provoking questions. And I think good for you guys to ensure that you keep this conversation going and keep us on our feet and thinking about this real problem in the industry. Thanks.
Thank you so much. It's excellent to hear feedback like that. And yeah, we appreciate it, and we appreciate you coming on board and supporting the initiatives. Thank you so much, Ms. Kwenaite.